Okay, let's go ahead and get started. We have a lot to cover. I am bringing you our webinar tonight from the Fairfield Inn in Moses Lake tonight. So if you hear a little background noise, that's what that is, but it's a real life deal today. Shannon and I met with a client and did a buyer consultation. So we are fresh off of that appointment. So you guys are going to learn from both of us tonight as we go through how to conduct a buyer consultation. For those of you who are just joining, I'm Rochelle Wilhite. I'm the designated broker. Welcome to our webinar on Monday nights. And we are going to get started in talking about buyer consultation. So I've got on the screen right now our website where you can find a lot of resources. And the first thing I want to draw your attention to is our member resources, where you can download information regarding buyer consultation materials, some of the things we're talking about tonight, and certainly our buyer agency agreement, which you really probably want to start to use as the market changes. So I'm going to have Shannon pull up the buyer agency agreement. Great. Many of you have started using this, which is awesome. This is the way to build trust and loyalty with your clients. And so it's super important that you know when to use this form. You don't want to just throw it at somebody or send it to them in AuthentiSign and have them sign it. There's a buildup or there's a process or a plan to help you with this. And that's what we're going to go over tonight is how do you incorporate a buyer agency agreement into your consultation and do it effectively so that your buyer signs it and you have won their trust and their loyalty for a period of time. The nice thing about our buyer agency agreement that Best Choice Realty puts together is it's already filled in. There's nothing you need to fill in, and it's for a 1-year period of time. Sometimes it takes some time, as you know, as a buyer's agent, it takes some time to find and negotiate the best property for your client. And so that's already in the period of agreement. The Northwest MLS or the other MLSs that I've seen with buyer agency agreements are usually much shorter, like a 90-day or 120-day. We want to make sure that we have enough time to work with our buyers. The other thing that's already filled in is the area of expertise. Because we have brokers all over the state of Washington, we have our area already filled in on our buyer agency agreement. And the compensation is also already filled in for you. So there's really all you have to do is drag and drop when you're doing AuthentiSign, the date, the buyer's name, and your name. And Best Choice Realty is already filled in. They just need to initial the pages, and then you sign it, and they sign it, and it's a binding agreement. This is something that we actually are holding the buyers accountable to. So if they end up deciding to go with another broker and you've done a lot of work and a lot of showings and done some marketing for them to try to find them a property, then we will collect on the commission. And we've attempted to do that 3 times in the past year. So I know that it's tough out there for buyer agents. And this is one way that you can actually make sure that you are earning what you work so hard for. All right, so the question that often comes up when I talk about buyer consultation is, why should I do it? I mean, if somebody's already working with me, Shannon is an example of that tonight. She had a friend that she goes to church with, and that friend her husband is getting a new job out in the Spokane area, which we happen to be headed to Spokane for the weekend. And then Monday, today, we were in Spokane at that office. And she got her husband's being transferred. They're getting a job offer letter, and so she's starting the process. And a lot of times, it's people and it's having those conversations that is really important to, just really understand what they're looking to do and letting them know that you're not a secret agent, that you actually could help them in whatever part of the state that they are looking. She happens to be looking in Washington, and Shannon was a little apprehensive because we're not in Idaho yet. And the place that she's looking is to stay in Washington. So it's looking like we're going to be able to have her sign the agency agreement. And that's already over to her for signature tonight. So to get to that point, though, it's a process. And so what I'll do is I'll have Shannon kind of give you an example of how you want to converse with that buyer and maybe share a few little tips that might help you if you're a new broker and you're new to this process. I think the most important thing is just asking the right questions. So I'm sure Shannon will give you some tips on what she said on the phone with this client. First, you've got to get them to commit to an appointment. Then when you're at the appointment, there's a whole next series of questions that you want to ask them, and then formalize a presentation, and then close them and have them sign the agency agreement. So it's in that kind of step-by-step order that you want to work with your buyers on. Why you do this? You really want to do this because what will happen is they'll start talking to a lot of people. On average, a buyer will talk with 5 different real estate agents before they'll select a buyer's agent to work with them. So rest assured, Shannon's friend that goes to church, she probably has talked to a few people, and I'm sure Shannon will give you a little bit of tips of what this client did to research Shannon out to determine before she even met with Shannon why she should select her over others.
So when I met with my client, so this is just fresh off. So I met with her in person. She was actually in my car and she was like, hey, by the way, I'm moving. And I know you're working over here, but do you by chance work over in the Spokane area? And I was upfront with her and I said, I'm only licensed to work in Washington. It was a unique situation for sure in that regard, right? She's looking in the Post Falls area and also Washington. And I said, you know what, but these are kind of the types of things that I would keep in mind. At the time, she'd actually already been looking at homes and driving around the area. She'd actually had a real estate agent that was a friend of hers that had popped her into a couple homes. But she's like, at the time it wasn't really serious. Now I'm really serious. I said, okay, well, that's not a problem. This is kind of how the process works. We need to make sure that you get pre-approved. And really instinctively, I think that a lot of agents, they think that they need to like drill down and know what's in this presentation and go through it page by page. But I think because I've been around it and I've been in the industry long enough to know that some of the stuff I know off the cuff. And so without even realizing it, I'm actually going through the consultation a little bit more, asking her questions basically to kind of guide me through it. And what I did differently is that I sent the presentation after the fact to her saying, hey, you have time. I know she's a first-time home buyer. So for her, she wants as much knowledge as possible. And so I said, you know what, I'm here as a resource for you. And then when you have time, after you've put the kids to bed or whatever, this is something that you can use as a resource for you. So I got her pre-approved. I made sure that it was with a reputable local lender. I've seen a couple people recently, even some of our own agents, that they're using some of the lenders that their clients have found, which is fine for most of the time. However, I always make sure that even if they are pre-approved, in her case, she was working with, I think, BECU or another local credit union. And I was like, well, it's not a bad thing to double app, right? To make sure that, you have another local real estate specific type of person that does this on a day-to-day basis in terms of resale, to take a look at your file and get you what's called underwritten pre-approved. She didn't even know what underwritten was, and they don't know that. It's okay, but you just say this will set you up, in certain circumstances, it can be as good as cash by being underwritten pre-approved. And she's like, really? I can actually compete? And I was like, oh yeah, totally. So I think that was something that I mentioned to her that she's like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that. I said, okay, well, let's get the ball rolling on that. One of the things that my big success that I think was really good, I followed up our conversation in my car, which was basically an impromptu buyer consultation, is that I said, you know what, no worries, I'll have my lender reach out to you. I sent her his information. And then I also messaged my lender asking him to call her the next day. And he did. He followed up. I trust my lender. I knew that he would follow through with that. And he did. And ultimately, he got the sale out of that too, which is good. So it's someone I like, someone I trust, someone I know who can close it, and we'll get her pre-approved within 24 hours, which is something that I think some of those big banks can't do. And at the end of the day, it also reinforces her trust in me that we're getting that deliverable within 24 hours. So all of that got done. I think because it obviously was an impromptu buyer consultation, I ended up having another phone conversation with her actually this weekend while I'm touring homes for her out in this area, kind of going through some of the stuff that I missed, which is fine. It's like a two-step approach, really, when you think of it. And then I ended up following up our call with an email. And I just wanted to share this on the screen here so you guys can take a look at it. But this is something that I would do for any of my clients really that I'm working with to cover a lot of my bases. So you can see here on the screen, it says Becca and Matthew. Those are my clients' names. After previewing homes for this weekend, I kind of add a little bit of a personal note, really, something that's unique to them to build more rapport. And then I said, I'm excited to roll up my sleeves and get to work trying to find you something in the Valley as promised. So making sure that I deliver on what I said I would do in the phone call with her. When I was on the phone with her, I said, I will send you the buyer consultation so you have more information to read. I will also send you some of the stuff that I need to send you by law, legally, to make sure that all that stuff is documented. She said, no problem. Sounds great. I look for it. So I'm delivering on what I've promised to send. Attached is the buying guide I mentioned that can be a resource for you to see how the home buying process works in Washington. For her, she's lived all over the country. So, what some real estate agent in another state might say could be different than the way that the process works here in Washington. So I just wanted to reiterate that. I'm also attaching disclosures I'm required by state law to provide as a real estate professional. Below are some helpful links to help you get oriented with the area. So for her, she's being transplanted. And I do this for a lot of relocated agents or clients, really. So we've got, I've had another client recently I've been working with that's based out of California. And for them, they're not familiar with the area. So, I send them some, the ferry schedule or some of those local resources to kind of, again, establish and build rapport, showing that you are a local resource for them. It's something that some of these other online agents, showing agents that they're finding on Zillow, Redfin, or whatever would not do. So how can I establish myself as a local resource? And so I gave her information for school districts. For her, she's got 2 little boys, wants to make sure that they're in a specific type of school district with specific type of ranking, what have you. Some people are more picky than others on that type of thing. And I also send the link for crime and demographic stats because I never want to be caught in this funny little hole where we're steering or doing anything sort of unethical. And so I just give them the information. They can do their own research and determine what's right for them. And then I end by saying, let me know when you're planning a trip over to the Spokane area. I will meet you there. I've scoped out a couple of restaurants that we can meet at when we're here. I'll let you know how it goes with the next showing that I have scheduled. And that after, if you scroll down, you can see I've got all of the law of agency pamphlets, mold guides, wire fraud, got the buyer presentation. And for her, it's going to be a very hot market for where she's wanting to buy. So I wanted to also include more information. Remember, she's a first-time home buyer, so I wanted her to have more information than she probably needs, really, so that she can be a well-informed buyer when she decides to put an offer together. So that's kind of what I tend to do. Obviously, I make some tweaks and customize depending on the type of client and the project that we're taking on. But I think my biggest takeaway and point is I always want to give more information than they'll need. And then also to just establish myself as a local expert, because she knows she's already looking online. She texted me literally the day after she met me in my car. And she looked me up online. She looked on Facebook, LinkedIn. She looked at my company. She looked up Best Choice Realty because she knew that I work for Best Choice and, what is this company and what is this, that, the other. And thankfully, I've spent the time over the last couple months to make sure that my profiles have my updated picture, have my updated bio, making sure that, I have how many years I've been in the business, I have reviews on those different platforms, because she looked at it and she mentioned it and she says, wow, this is amazing. She had nothing but good things to say. And I think for her, having already worked with a couple other agents, or at least kind of gotten some references for other agents in the area, even though I don't live in that specific neighborhood that she's wanting to buy, she can trust knowing that I'm a local professional and I have her best interests at mind. And there's other people that can vouch for me. So that's kind of what my take would be for the circumstances. Is there something else you wanted me to share, Rochelle?
No, that was great, Shannon. I think when you really look at The ultimate reason on why you do a consultation, I think you covered a few very important things. Number one, follow-up is huge. I mean, you can, and kind of putting the breadcrumbs throughout. It's kind of like following the little trail. You want to make sure that you have several different points of contact. You don't try to overwhelm a buyer all at once. To me, it looks like you have started the conversation maybe in the car, then that proceeded to, have some more discussions where she's kind of talking with other people and then checking your online. So it's kind of like you dropped some different breadcrumbs along the way that kind of got her to the point of the consultation. So then the question that often I get is, well, where do you do the consultation, Rochelle? I mean, do you do it in their home? Do you do it at the first house? Do you do it on the first showing? Do you do it in the hotel? I mean, shoot, we're in the hotel right now, right? To meet with a client at the hotel. I mean, it might be as simple as finding out, just, do you have 15 minutes? Do you have 30 minutes where we can really go over the documents that I've sent you, or to go over a consultation so that we're not into a situation where we're having to do a lot more work that's not necessary. You really want to make sure that you kind of put yourself in their shoes. If I was going to work with a professional, I would want to sit down with somebody and know what they're all about. What's their value proposition? How are they going to help me? Just like you did, Shannon, and putting them in the right touch with the right lender. Obviously, that was the right move for that client because she's a first-time home buyer. And by you saying about how you can save them money and you can actually help them make the process go just like cash, I think that resonated with her really well. Let's go ahead and dive into the presentation, and I'll give you guys a couple of the takeaways. Now, this can be downloaded right from our website. So you guys can go right to the website and you can download it right here. If you want to customize it for yourself, you just need to send Lori an email and she will give you a pretty affordable rate on customizing this for yourself. She has some ways of saving you guys some money, but you really need to personalize or have a presentation, or at least know how to give this presentation, because it serves us well. We've used it for many years. I think I'm going on my 15th year of actually having a formal presentation to do for buyers. It talks about touring properties, and they can, you can kind of gloss over, just like Shannon says, she's internalized a lot of these pages, but let's go ahead and keep on going down to the ones that I really love, which is really the step-by-step process. I don't care if you're a new broker or a new buyer, or if you've been buying and selling homes a lot of people want to know, what is the process like in Washington, and it's different. Every state is a little bit different on how they go about the process. So to have in essence, your consultation be all about the process, I want to spend 15 minutes with you, Shannon, in going over how real estate is bought and sold in Washington. Do you have some time where we can sit down in the hotel room that you're staying, or we can meet at my office, or we can meet at that first house, or we can meet at the Starbucks, wherever it's comfortable for you and your family, or whoever's involved in the decision making, so we can understand the game. How are we going to play the game here? And so then I go through very succinctly. I know obviously one through step, all the steps here, but what I want to point out to them is step one, kind of where we're at, just kind of state of the land. Why are we meeting? I want to make sure that you understand the process and that you have all the resources and the expectations set before we go out and journey out and look at all these properties. I found that when I do a presentation with my buyers, we have a higher likelihood of finding their dream home and also negotiating the best price, because we have discussed the process in full. And so what I have here today is a consultation for you. I'm going to ask you a few questions. So I've asked a few questions already by the time I get to this page. But when I get to this page, I highlight where we're at, so the state of the affairs. So in this case, you've already started the loan process. Great job, Shannon, or in her case, her client. Recognize that. Thank you so much for taking that time and meeting with Sam to go over your pre-approval process. Right now, we're in step 3. And before we go out and look at a few properties, I want to make sure that you've taken the time to read some of the things and you understand the process about making an offer, what it means to be under contract, and some of the things that we're going to have to keep in mind in step 6 and step 7. Some of the properties we're going to go look at today, Shannon, have some issues with inspection. One of the homes came back on the market. Again, I'm trying to personalize this and make this real for them, but drawing their attention to all of these steps and bringing their bringing to home the point that throughout this entire step, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, Shannon, I'm going to be with you the entire time. That's my job as your real estate agent, is to make sure that you have all of the resources necessary to make a good buying decision. So I'll be with you the entire time, but I just want to make sure that you understand we're on step 3 and then we're working through some of these steps. And it helps to kind of put their head and their eyes on the paper to know that you've got their back, and you've got a fluid process that you've done time and time again for other clients. Let's go to the next page. So I love that page. Even if that's the only page you internalize as a new broker, spend the time and go through that page and the cost to purchase. If you can also internalize this page and really drill home the important points and ask your client clarifying questions, such as, Shannon, you said that you were going to be able to get an FHA loan. It looks like Sam was able to get you pre-approved for an FHA loan. Do you have any additional funds necessary in case the appraisal does not come in at the valuation? Do you have anything extra, or is your parents involved in the purchase? The client will then say yes, no, or no, I've scraped together all I can, Rochelle. That's all I've got. Then you can have, what you're armed with when you go into the offer process. Again, the reason I'm asking these questions is so I can make the best offer possible when we get to that point. Also, earnest money. I want to make sure you understand how earnest money is handled in Washington. It does not get held by me. Once we find a home that you like, you'll put the earnest money up and you'll get it written out to the escrow company, and they will hold your money until we close escrow. And that's your money, but it holds the place. You just want to make sure they understand what earnest money is about, and that it's your job as the agent to make sure that you put that security in and put their best foot forward when you write the offer. Also talk about inspections. In King County specifically, I'd say 99% of the time, we're seeing pre-inspections are being done. That might be a stretch. Probably more like 90% of the listings that I see already have done a pre-inspection, and you have that available. Talk very openly about the inspection process and what the benefit and the concerns it would be to reviewing that inspection, and making sure they're okay with moving forward if they do choose that they have the ability to waive, do their own inspection, or rely on the inspection that the seller has provided. Also discuss appraisal and closing costs. The more you can personalize this to their situation, the better it will be. I don't talk too much about applying for the mortgage, but I draw their attention, especially if they're first-time home buyer, what not to do. The testimonials speak for themselves. You can use my testimonials if you don't have them. They're all very generic. And then the last page is the page I want you guys, if you're a new broker, you really should memorize this. If you do not have a value proposition and you're trying to build confidence and lead into a buyer agency agreement, which is what I do and what I've taught Shannon to do as well, you do want to memorize this and have it so that it becomes maybe make I've told my son, he's 16 years old, how to pass tests. You got to make some flashcards. Maybe make some flashcards for yourself on how you're going to work exclusively for that buyer. Once you memorize this page and you feel, and it becomes your own, you've internalized it and can share it openly with the buyer. As soon as you get done with the speech of, I want to remain 100% committed and ensure that you have the best buying experience possible, the next thing you say is, all I need you to do is to sign our agency agreement so we can get started. And then you can trial close them. You say, would you have a problem signing that agreement with me today? And then you pause and you wait for them to just go ahead and sign. Or in that case, I've set it up for your to go to your email. All I need is your electronic signature before we go out and look at some properties. Does that work for you? Again, I'm trial closing, but it's super helpful if you internalize and you, in essence, make this your own. It's right there in the presentation. They will respect you even more when you walk through a process like this. They're going to ask you questions throughout the presentation, like, ooh, I don't know if I can afford that. Or what about down payment assistance? Be prepared. If you don't know the answer, let me check with my team leader. Let me check with my broker. I'm sure we can get you an answer on that right away. If you don't know, it's better not to think that you know and answer improperly. Just go ahead and just let me make a note of that. Let me take that note down and I'll get back to you on that when we're showing our properties. That's the best way. Again, you want to be very, very candid and don't try to say something you don't know. That's a big mistake that a lot of rookie agents make when they're doing a buyer consultation. If they're unsure, best not to answer the question. Just let me make a note of that. And I'll get back to you on that when we're showing our properties. Step by step, memorize. We talked about that. Okay, other things with buyer costs, that calculator is super helpful. If they maybe are putting the horse before the cart, in essence, going out and looking at step 3, but yet they have not become pre-approved, I don't make that. I want to build as much trust and rapport as possible. So I will use that calculator. If you have not spent some time, if you're a new broker, with your title company, ask them for an app. All of them have an app right now. And the app would be kind of a calculator that you can use to estimate closing costs, estimate different fees, what their monthly payment would be. At least then that way you're not showing them properties that are outside their budget. So at least do that at a minimum if they have not spent the time in getting pre-approved. But remind them, if you go back to that page, Shannon, on the step-by-step process, it's super important to have them talk with the lender and know their purchasing options. So memorize, if you can, the step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then that last page. And hopefully that was helpful. If you guys have any questions at all about a particular client, or you're wanting to go through this, maybe role play, that would be a great opportunity to do with your mentor or with Candace on a one-on-one, or even with me. Just say, Rochelle, I need 5-10 minutes of your time to actually roll through part of that presentation, because it's all about your confidence. People will sense it and they'll actually work with you if you're confident, and they'll definitely sign your agency agreement if you're confident in how you deliver it. And with that, I'll let you guys go. Have a great night.